it's 4:17, 4:18, so we're we're doing pretty well on time for something of this nature. So what do you think we should do, Ani? Defer questions for the general session?
Yeah,
Or
I think we can open up the general session now. I believe there are some other speakers, and moderator Brian is also there. So I would request all the speakers who are still with us, please open your video and participate in a general Q&A, and I'll let John start the big conversation questions from today. Brian, Matt.
Brian, are you there?
I am here.
So we have had a variety of presentations. The running thread, the red thread running through all that is really identifying opportunities for reducing threats and improving training opportunities and being more responsive to market demands. So the thing that struck me is that there is a distinct lack of response on the part of academia, putting aside colleges of computing, of course, and information technology, in terms of training a workforce ready to pick up the challenge. The number that Shawen put on the board, I don't have the figures right in front of my eyes, I took some notes, but where are we in terms of the, there are 663,000 individuals who are employed in cybersecurity, or these are the job openings, correct? There are 500,000 plus job openings in cybersecurity?
Numbers are something like that.
Yeah. Million.
So how do you plug that, assuming that it's much more than a process, it's really having manpower, skilled manpower, whether it's tech or non-tech manpower, ready to pick up the challenge. How do you fill that gap? Is it a generic labor market problem, or is it one specifically to that, a problem that is specific to that area, which is IT related, though not exclusively IT, as Gary indicated?
Well, I'd like to throw in a comment to hook onto what Amit was talking a little bit about. Having programs or universities that are focusing on Black students or female students or other underserved minorities, it's not just about diversity of the workforce because of the people, it's the diversity of the thought that those people bring to the industry. Mm-hmm. And that is an essential part of building any defensive strategy that you're going to have for a society. There's some saying somewhere that said that the same minds that brought us these problems can't solve them. And there is a large element of truth to that. So, I've been trying to encourage this throughout my career as well. And I have seen nothing but good things happen when we diversify the thought processes that are coming into the room.
Right. So, John, Gary, I would like to add one more dimension to the problem. And let's say that shortage today is 500,000 to 1 million cyber defenders, okay, today in US. Is that kind of problem shortage is also in other countries, or is it US problem? What I'm trying to get at is that why do we have the shortage? For example, this shortage is about 1 million in nursing also, okay? And I think right in the beginning, we were told that the largest number of attacks are on the US. Now, on the US, the Rob Cheng, in terms of state nation attacks, okay? Now, is this, we all know, we know it for 10, 15, 20 years, okay, that we are short by this number. Are we waiting for something catastrophic and then wake up?
Well, I think one of the slides showed that the shortage in the US is like 750,000 to 1 million. And the worldwide shortage is like 3.5 to 4 million.
3.5 million.
So this is very much an international problem.
Yeah.
But we really hit the nail on the head with some of his comments, particularly around the looking for people to have advanced degrees when they really don't need them. your calculus comment really hit home with me, because I took 4 semesters of college calculus, and in the past 20 years, I've used it exactly once. And that one time I used it was to laugh at a calculus joke that somebody had in a slide deck. So
there you go. Oh, yeah.
yeah. So we fight this in our own company, trying to work with our talent acquisition to get them to send us the right people. Our talent acquisition wants to see degrees all over the place, or just like decades of experience. And there's no way to bring new talent into our company. We don't have entry-level positions. I have people even within my own company every day saying, hey, how do I get into cybersecurity? What do I study? What do I do? And I can point them in the direction of certifications or things that I think would be helpful for them to know. But when it comes to actually getting them a position, there's no open position for someone with no experience. And we've got to find some way to get the entry-level people in the door to actually get that experience so that they can have those qualifications that everybody's looking for.
Yeah, and that's where these internships, they really help the students. So students fresh out of college, or probably, in their junior or senior year, if they get some internship opportunities at the tech companies, that can really open the door for a lot of other things.
Definitely. We have a couple of really good employees that we hired after internships. Unfortunately, there's not enough of them to go around. And when we find people in the company who want to get into cybersecurity, but who are not in college, it's tough to find that position for them.
Yeah, I think and like one thing contributing to the shortage of workforce, one side is that if you compare to like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, today there are much more business and get into their business requiring information technology, infrastructure. So that means more business today need to get protected. So that's why they want to hire people to take care of the cybersecurity of their business. So the demand is growing. But on the other side is that, just as Gary mentioned about, because traditionally we think, when we talk about cybersecurity, we think about technical. So not students may not be interested in technical thing, but they are not aware. Actually, we do have a requirement or the needs in the non-technical side about cybersecurity as well. So it's about the education to high school students and what the cybersecurity really looks like. So that's why actually my department initialized the very first we call the IT Perspective Day. So we invite high school students. They are not necessarily coming to KSU, but we open to all high school students and also 2-year technology student, like a 2-year college student, if they're maybe considering a cybersecurity career in the future. So we invite them to come here for 1 day, and we expose them to different curriculum settings and activities of cybersecurity for them to gain some idea before they make decision where to go, because many of them do not have any idea what is about cybersecurity, because most of them they think about hackers working on codes and hack somebody's computer, but there are not many other things in cybersecurity. Anyway,
I've heard 2 things which are related. The first one is partnerships. Of course, internships is one manifestation of it.
Yeah.
And we can explore partnerships in greater depth. And Cox is a partner already, I'm sure, of a number of universities and so on, training programs. But the other is cyber literacy, a minimum level of cyber literacy for non-tech students, non-IT students, non-engineering students, non-science students. And I don't think a lot of universities do a good job on that. I think if you could sort of have a requirement in a fun sort of way relating to a minimum, a modicum of cyber literacy, that would be helpful in already tracking some students towards those positions, which are creative positions, which do not necessarily require a advanced degree in technology fields, which can take the form of a 6-month certification. So what do we
So-
do
so-
to have more cyber literacy?
Well,
I mean,
John, I mean,
well-
to that point, cybersecurity, cyber defense, whatever we want to call it, is not monolithic. And I think a
No.
lot of people, when they think about cybersecurity, they think, I need to know how to use a soldering iron. Sorry, not interested. Or Word doesn't, Windows doesn't work very well. I don't want to get more into that. If they don't see the broader things that the field entails. So yeah, the cyber literacy can not only be helping people become cyber safe on their own, but also know more about what the field entails.
Right.
Because we make the
Yeah, that
assumption
was a
that the new
fantastic point
generations.
about cybersecurity not necessarily being technical.
Yes.
I mean, we have 100 employees in our department, and I'd say maybe 20% of them are doing technical stuff. There's also a lot of architecture work. There's governance, risk and compliance. There's education and awareness. There are very few people, relatively speaking, in our department who are actually hands-on keyboard, analyzing malware or looking at packets or
Right.
doing all of the super technical stuff.
So, Matt, I have a question for you, as you're representing the corporate world here. Are we waiting for some sort of a virus type of attack on our systems? Then we wake up, oh, we don't have a supply. Okay, we are so short on this thing and that thing. Unfortunately, it took us coronavirus 19's attack to realize that how dependent our supply chains are. And comes the CHIPS Act.
We've already had that incident. We've had that supply chain incident, which was the SolarWinds attack. So I think everyone in the industry is well aware that we have gaps and what those gaps are and what we need to do to fill them. It's just a question of actually having those resources. And people is the hardest thing to get. If I need budget to go buy some tool, I have an established process where I can go make a business case and I can show, here's the risk and here's how we avoid that risk by buying this tool or something. But when I need a person, I can't just reach out into the market and pluck one out of thin air. We have job recs that stay open for months because we can't find the right person.
But why can't you find the right person?
Yeah, we
Is HR screening people out that ought not to be screened out? Are we not putting out the correct job description? Do we understand what we want that person to be, who we want to hire?
All of the above.
Darn.
It is, we've had a lot of conversations with our talent acquisition teams to try and fine tune this process of here are the things that we're actually looking for. But, the HR team doesn't know anything about cybersecurity.
No.
So we can say, here are some keywords to look for or that kind of thing, but it doesn't necessarily get the right candidates to us. And then for bureaucratic reasons, purely bureaucratic reasons, we end up having to put degree requirements on some of the positions, and the work experience equivalent of a degree is just ridiculous. It's like a bachelor's degree or 12 years of experience. It's just silly. And because there is such a shortage, salaries have obviously gone up. And so
Right.
A lot of the times when we get a candidate all the way through the process, we find somebody we really want to hire, they have a better offer waiting for them somewhere else, and we lose the opportunity.
So can I make an entirely parochial statement?
Of course.
I'm going to go ahead with that. So the area that I've been dealing with for the last 6 years, like I said, is maritime cyber. Now, maritime in the United States, we account for something on the order of 90% of all imports and exports, 25% of the GDP, and 30 million jobs.
Yeah.
Maritime is integral to national security, national defense, food security, energy security, the list goes on. Our very ability to function as a society. I mean, think of all this stuff as we become a global economy that we no longer make in this country. If all the ships stop moving stuff, how are we getting that stuff here and there? There are many of us who claim in maritime that cyber is an existential threat. Now, we can look at a lot of industries, and I would very quickly then go on to food and energy and talk about how a cyber attack poses a potentially existential threat to those things. So on the one hand, while it may seem, why do we need special cyber literacy at university level? Well, aren't there other things we need? Well, look at those things in society that have an impact with every single thing that we do. And, I think it requires special care and feeding, perhaps. And Matt has mentioned that, there are too many HR departments that really are only HR departments. Give me a job posting, I'll put it out there. I don't help retain my employees. I don't help make my employees better. And then there are, you keep referring to talent acquisition, which makes me sound like maybe you have a department that is a little bit more than I'm taking applications and screening people out. The question really is if I have a job need and I can describe the job need, how can there be direct comms between me and the people applying for the job?
Well, there are undoubtedly specific problems to cybersecurity related jobs, but I take the larger picture in terms of labor economics. And I go back to what Anya Agniotri was saying. There is a shortage in nursing. There is, in fact, a shortage in air traffic controllers. If you were stuck in New York and you were coming down to Atlanta, I know some people who rented a car. I mean, are on their way to Atlanta as we speak. And there is a shortage in many other technical or relatively technical areas of the field in an economy that is the largest economy in the world, at least in terms of GDP at this point.
Yep.
Well, you could question that. Is it a problem that is endemic to the United States? Where are we failing? At the high school level, at the primary school level? I mentioned cyber literacy because we produce a lot of non-tech students who go on to being baristas for Starbucks, while they could very well be employed in other. So it's a generic societal problem. It's in the labor economics built in the labor economics of the United States. Maybe we should loosen the human resource standards and criteria. They view themselves as keeper of the inner sanctum. We should really open the gates and do some more internal training within the firm. I think that would be difficult at Cox, hiring someone who's not fully prepared and you would say, Matt, we're going to train them. We're going to have internal training programs to make up those gaps.
Well, for the right person, I think that's actually a good idea. To touch back on something else that Gary said, cybersecurity is a mindset more than a skill set. Give me a person with good problem solving skills. Give me someone who looks at a system and thinks, how could that break? I'll layer on the technical stuff on top of them. So I'm absolutely not opposed to taking people who have little or no experience if we think they have the right personality and training them up. Unfortunately, that's difficult to do from a bureaucracy perspective, I think.
Yeah. How do you hire that?
I have a question here.
How do you put that into a job description?
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question here for Brian, and then to Dr. Wu. And this is from chat. I'm seeing it's interesting, similar to what we have been discussing. Julia writes, we have an island in industry and education that do not communicate with each other. Now, we have two islands, industry and we have education. And how do we create a bridge? Brian, Dr. Wu.
Get out there and build those bridges yourself. Those bridges ain't going to build themselves. And I think it's probably a little bit easier to do at a smaller school like my own, where, it's I'm given a lot of free rein to kind of do whatever I want to do. And so I'm going to regularly reach out to representatives from industry. And also I think it helps for people who are in higher education to have at least spent some time working in industry. It helps them develop a sense of empathy for what, people in industry expect. Okay. And I forget who mentioned it, but, somebody was, one of the speakers mentioned, questioning the value of the need for an advanced degree. But I want to come back to just the point about just getting out there and doing it. I think it's at USCB, for example, we don't have we have our own career fair here, but it's not as if like Fortune 500 companies are, you know, knocking at the gate to come to our career fair because, you know, our location is along the coast. There's probably perception that we're more of a tourism economy, which, you know, locally, you know, that has historically been the case. So I take the battle to wherever the fighters are, you know, and so I started taking my own students to USC Columbia, the mothership's the mothership campus's career fair, and getting the students right in front of those recruiters. But I go there too, and I go and I speak to, you know, the recruiters and try to understand, okay, what do you really need, you know, so that I can be thinking about what to incorporate in my own classes. But I think there is a common thread to what a lot has been said today around soft skills and in particular empathy. I don't think you necessarily have to just think like the bad guy. I think you have to think like everyone. You have to think like, you know, the bad guy could be, you know, a future version of yourself who's just like not paying attention and accidentally clicks on a link, looks at a form that looks perfectly legitimate, and you end up typing your credentials in, and then you're like, oh crap, what the heck did I just do? You know, and then you got to backtrack and solve that problem. So it's just what I've tried to do in my own classes. You know, I'm sure my students hate hearing about it, but you know, I get them to think about being empathetic, even if it means being empathetic to their future self. Look at the code you're writing right now. Okay, are you using variables like X, or are you using variables like, say, number of enemies on screen? Okay, what kind of variable name is going to be more meaningful to the version of you that comes back and picks up this project and thinks, okay, I've got to pick up where I left off. What the heck did X mean again? You know, so empathy, I think that's the key.
Dr. Wu, what would be your response that, you know, we have two islands, industry and academia. How do we connect them?
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I think this has to be the efforts from both islands. So for example, when I took the position of department chair here, and I start actively reaching out to industry, because I have been working in industry for a few years as a senior software engineer before I came to my PhD study. And so I understood the perspective in industry. But at the same time, I think, you know, so I wanted to reach out to industry to gain their perspective, for example, about our curriculum. So it's up to date, or what they need, they already have. And also at the same time, I try to establish a partnership to get our students more opportunities to really, you know, get like a mentorship from industry. For example, last year I went to Middletown, meet Google and Microsoft. And so they have actually a partnership with a third-party nonprofit organization to have minority students from the freshmen and to be mentored by an actually engineer working in their business. So I think that's a very good model to, you know, really to bridge in those two islands. So I try to establish some channels like that, but of course, as I said, why this requires efforts from both islands. So this is just my initiative. But during my reaching out, I do observe one type of thing. A lot of you know, folks in industry, they're not interested about this at all. So they just, of course, I understand the business, they have to be like a profit driven. They need to think about how to run the business better to make more money. But I do had a few contacts. They showed very good interest to give us inputs and participate in all those efforts. So that's why I think like industry focus, because we represented the academia focus. So industry focus like Matt and others. And so we need you guys to really active help us, you know, to get the bridge built up. So yeah.
I'll say that we love working with academia. There's important things that both sides can add. The private industry is somewhat constrained in that we have to be able to justify what we're doing in terms of how it will help our business. It's tough to just do something for pure research purposes. But on the academic side, there's often a deficit of real world experience. So an academic organization can go develop a solution that is just amazing and fantastic and complicated and technical and a marvel of mathematics, but doesn't actually work for anything in the real world. So by working together, we can produce some really good solutions. We do collaborate with Georgia Tech, for example. We're working with them on a DARPA research project right now. So we love doing that stuff. And I'm happy to talk with any of you who'd love to do a collaboration.
There is one area we have not really addressed. It's the advent of private for-profit training schools that offer credentials as opposed to degree. They often fill a gap. We see them all over the place, advertised on TV. The quality of the training they offer is sometimes questionable. And until recently, the U.S. Department of Education funds were made available to some of these schools. Many came under investigation for really not providing the level of training they pretended to offer. But I think they are important in really filling up that gap, which is really an impressive gap, 500,000, in an area that is as critical. Our keynote speaker started his presentation with an image of Adolf Hitler at the end of the 1930s to get across the point. But might have been an exaggeration, perhaps, but perhaps not. If there are rigidities in the world of higher education, state or private, then there are other mechanisms, certainly in a society like the United States, to really train people at the level needed for industry. You see it all over China, actually. There are private schools in China that provide very specific trainings as opposed to university. And I think that's the case also in India, if I recall. There is quite a few private for-profit schools in India. They may not train the best engineers, but that is not the objective. The objective is to really respond to a very specific niche in a configuration of market requirements and needs. So,
but John, I'm concerned about why we would encourage people to go to school to get questionable training.
Well, but not all of them are that way.
Well, true enough.
And the Department of Education, for a while there, not that long ago, basically took them on and required performance measures in terms of living up to the promises they made in terms of job performance, hiring, and the like.
Well,
So,
please do understand that I live in a state where the governor would like accreditation of colleges and universities to not happen. So
you must be in Florida.
Yeah.
I didn't say that, but obviously
WTF, Florida.
But I'll tell you one of the things, and actually Brian and I sort of had a side, at a band conversation about this. So I try very hard, and I think I mostly succeed at not being an academic snob. There are things that college and university brings to people that I think are important to make good citizens and to make good professionals long-term. And if nothing else, it is critical thinking and the desire for lifelong learning. And I think that in the last, I didn't start in higher education until the year 2000. And it was during the sort of shift where academia was being told, you really have to produce people that can go out and get jobs and fill the marketplace role and all that. And I understand that, and I understand the drive. But I think that we pushed the pendulum to the point that we're sometimes putting out students that understand their field. They don't understand the totality of how they fit, how their field fits. And so again, I also understand that not everybody wants to go to college.
That's right. And the value of college is increasingly questioned, by the way.
Well, it's increasingly questioned if you look at it financially.
Well, I mean,
and
if you are a family, that's an important consideration.
Absolutely. I mean, again, I'm not silly about that, nor am I independently wealthy. But I I think that we need to think about things more than just finances. Finances don't drive every student. You know, there are some students that will go out and take a lower paying, better job because it's better for them. Now, if they are under crippling debt from university, they probably have to be driven a little bit like, how am I paying off that debt? But I think it's actually a very, very complex problem that we have created for our society.
Great. Well, with this, John, we would like to close the event. It was very interesting. We had an opportunity to hear 12 experts, and we hope to stay in touch with you and invite you for our future events. These are our presenting partners and sponsors: Georgia Tech's Scheller College of Business, Cyber, Global USA Business Forum, UIBS, State of Georgia, Novalis from Aditya Birla's Novalis, Forsyth County, Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, University of South Carolina, Beaufort, Next Generation Manufacturing, Connex, USIBRC, Third Millennium, and Marshall Automation. We appreciate your time today and look forward to staying in touch with you. We are recording this session. We will have to get it edited by session because this is going to be a very large file. So please give us about 7 to 10 days and we'll be happy to share the recordings with you, as well as we'll be putting on our website, Georgia Tech's website also.
Very good.
But there's
So we have opened the channels of communication. Let's keep them open. I look forward to being in touch as we follow up.
Thank you very much.
Have a great summer.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks, John and Eddie.